I wanted to do a video review for you guys today of the Video Game Awards. I have been largely a huge fan of the Video Game Awards, at least in spirit. The truth is, the video game industry is one that is incredibly near and dear to my heart. It is my primary passion, it is my number one hobby. I have been a huge video game fan since I was 6 years old. I'm 38 and I'm still going strong. Love everything about video games. So the fact that we get a award show to honor and highlight particular games, to me, sounds like a really cool idea. And we've gone through the trials and tribulations of some of the better and worse video game awards shows over the years, but I think we can all universally agree that Jeff Keighley has done, for the most part, a pretty good job of getting everybody together in a way that we could celebrate the year in gaming. Unfortunately, it seems that the show has become much more politicized as time has gone on, and it's getting to the point now where I think we need to take a step back going into 2021 and reevaluate what exactly the Video Game Awards should be about. Now, I was fortunate enough to watch this entire thing from the comfort of my own home. I texted with my boy Brent almost the entire time. We watched it together, essentially, virtually, as most things are done this year virtually. But I got to talk and bounce some ideas with him, and we agreed and disagreed on certain aspects of the show. But the one thing we did agree on was that the amount of announcements were way over the top. And this is something that I find to be a little frustrating. I understand the gamers are a finicky bunch. We always want to see the next big thing. And we are all painfully aware of this entire have and have nots where, game journalists get these extensive behind closed doors demos and they get access to the hottest, newest things before a lot of us do. And we want to be included in that. And I say we as just the common gamer. We want to see that stuff too. So knowing that there are games in development that we can't see, knowing that there are, arrangements being made that journalists are aware of and we're not, does create a sense of this, hey, we want to be included too. And I feel like a lot of these award shows kind of try to, win that, take that piece of this whole thing and kind of monopolize that almost in a way to say, hey, look, if you come watch our show, we're going to give you world exclusives of all these great new games coming out. Stuff that you wouldn't get to see anywhere else. But, as journalists, we've already seen it. But hey, for the lesser man, why don't you come check it out too? And I think there's a big appeal and draw. And I think that is, unfortunately, what the focus of the show has become. And less about the celebrating of different games and talking to developers and kind of making an award show more about the excitement of the games we already have instead of this forward-looking, hey, let's get and talk about what's coming next year. The Game Awards were littered with, and I say littered, I chose that word intentionally, littered with trailers. Constant world premieres, and some points back-to-back world premieres, and it got bloated. The show ran a lot longer than it needed to, and there were a lot of awards that were given out that were incredibly rushed in lieu of these trailers for the games and announcements coming out that, honestly, I don't think a lot of people remember. Think back now if you watch the Game Awards, just sit here as you're reflecting watching this video, and name 5 different games you saw that came out that excited you. And you probably can't. And the reason is because you saw like 30 of them. There were so many announcements for lesser games, and this is really an extension, I think, of what happened this year when E3 dissolved, unfortunately, due to COVID, is all of these small companies said, hey, we're going to band together, and we're going to make our own little mini E3, and we're going to have announcements. And the Game Awards, I think, is just an extension of that, and there was a lot of announcements for games that nobody cared about, or just pure CGI trailers, or something, hey, coming in 2022, or in development now, that really wasn't worth showing. It didn't build any hype or any interest. People largely forgot about them, and instead we got the focus shifted away from the celebration of the games that came out this year. Instead, we got all of these little mini forward-thinking trailers that just didn't really amount to anything, and that's why the show length just got so long. As far as the actual awards themselves, I think they did a good job once again of trying to find a diverse list of things. I still think there are some really dopey awards out there, like Best Esports Team, Best Streaming Personality, which ultimately just becomes a popularity contest. It's nothing to do with who's the best. And honestly, there's no such thing as who is the best. Some of my favorite streamers are relatively unheard of people, but I like the way that they present their material, and I think that they're funny or serious or whatever they happen to be. They'll never ever be nominated for that because they're just not big enough. And the truth is, I think that that whole thing is just, it's a sham in of itself, but whatever. There are some other awards too that don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, like an accessibility award, for a game that basically puts easy mode on. Well, yes, I think accessibility can mean how easy it is to get into it, but at its core nature, accessibility more relates to things like different input controls and different color schemes and different ways for you to present the existing game information for people who have disabilities or for people who prefer to see things in a different way. Not so much, we're going to make a game and we're going to put a bunch of easy mode settings on essentially a list of cheat codes and say that that is accessible. That's not what that word means. And somehow we've taken the word accessible and we've turned it into that. So a game like Last of Us winning accessibility doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And really, honestly, this was the Last of Us award show. They won just about every possible award that they could win. And honestly, as a polarizing game as that was, it was definitely the game journalist's darling, which had to win everything. And guess what? It won everything. So looking back at this now, I honestly would have to reflect as to next year. What could they do better? We need to quit having these railroad games come through that win every single category. It does put a very bad mark on the industry when one game wins so many things, when clearly it's not that great of a game to all people in all categories. It just rarely happens that way. There are a lot of other games that do really phenomenal things that should be recognized in their own right. But unfortunately, when you start putting these blockbuster games in every single category, it's going to win. And I feel like that's kind of where the Game Awards starts to fall apart. There may need to be a rule of, okay, you can only be nominated for 3 categories or something. I don't know, pick an arbitrary number, but stick to that to kind of spread it out a little bit, because 2020 did have some phenomenal games come out this year, and we didn't get to see a very big portion of those highlighted. In just a similar vein with The Last of Us being the big media darling for the big blockbuster game, somehow Hades became the media darling for the indie game that we all needed to rally behind. And this is another common theme I've seen in the Video Game Awards, where we will take a very small indie game and we will prop it up and say, look, this is going to be the game of the year, which we know it's not. It's just like a throwaway award that we just have to basically... a throwaway entry that we have to put in there just to kind of appease the masses. And guess what? They never win anything, and they never do. Indie games should not be ranked at the same level of a AAA game because it's not even comparable in budget. It's like comparing a $20,000 car to a $500,000 car. Well, guess what? Performance-wise, you're going to pay for better quality. And in a similar vein, an indie game is, no matter how good or how polished it is, will never ever hold a candle to a AAA game. And when you do this with the Video Game Awards, when you take these indie games and you make them these darlings, you miss out on other good indie games. I saw no mention of Rogue Legacy, which I guess you could argue is still in development. I saw no mention of Spelunky 2, which was a phenomenal, highly rated game. Just to name a few, there are a lot of good indie games. Carrion is a good indie game. There's just a ton. I could go on and on of these ideas where, Hades has to now be the indie game. So it's very odd. I think looking back on it now and really reflecting on it, I don't think the Game Awards really celebrate games much anymore in terms of what diversity is. It's just a hand-picked, curated list by journalists to celebrate the games that they know in their heart are, the ones that they feel that they've rallied behind for whatever reason. I suspect next year it will be the Cyberpunk Award show because the media is losing their minds over this game collectively, despite the insane amount of performance issues it's having. But this is the game that everybody needed in their lives, apparently, and this is the game that's going to win. So mark this video, come back in a year from now, and I guarantee you Cyberpunk is going to probably win every single award for best design, best art, best this, best that. And that's not really the case. Or maybe it is. I don't know. We have yet to be seen, but I wasn't feeling the Game Awards this year, and another big down step for me. And despite what I said at the beginning of this video, and I really do believe Jeff Keighley is probably the best person to put this kind of stuff together, ultimately it falls flat. And I wasn't a fan of it this year. So I don't know. They need to go back and reinvent things. We need to drop the trailers. We need to get back to the awards of games. We need to diversify the list of games, and we need to stop getting these railroad games coming in because it does make the industry look like we're very gullible, and it does make us look like we're all tag-alongs and we're jumping on the bandwagon for whatever the hot new game is. And I can tell you guys that not everybody loved The Last of Us the way that the journalists did. But if you look at the Game Awards as an outsider and look at what the industry feels, what did the whole game industry come together and feel what is the most popular game, and you see one game win so many awards, that's not a good reflection of the industry, and it's not a good reflection of who we are as gamers. And we can do better. With that, I'd like to close out this video. Leave your comments below. Let me know if you watched it. Let me know if you liked the trailers, you didn't. What were your thoughts on it? I'd like to hear from you guys. So thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.